Okay.
Are we streaming yet?
Yes, you should be streaming. It should say up on the top, live on YouTube.
Okay. And are we recording?
Yes, it's being recorded.
Okay. Hello, good afternoon. I'm Matt Utterback, Superintendent of the North Clackamas School District, and I'd like to thank you for joining us this afternoon as we share with our community a planning update on our returning to school for the 2020-2021 school year. Our agenda today, in probably about 45 minutes, we're going to review the timeline that we're working under and share some critical dates with our community. We're going to share with you our district direction and some guiding.
Matt, I'm sorry. There's a lot of, I think people have their volume off on the stream.
Today, in probably about 45. What do you want me to do?
I think we've cleared it.
Okay, I'm just going to start over.
Sounds good.
Sorry for that technical difficulty. We're going to go ahead and start over. My name is Matt Utterback. I'm the superintendent of the North Clackamas School District, and I want to thank you for joining us today as we update our community on our return to school plans for the 2020-2021 school year. Our agenda today includes reviewing with you the timelines that we're working under as we prepare to open schools. We want to provide with you some district direction and guiding documents that are helping guide our decision-making. The recent state health metrics that were released last week. We'll spend quite a bit of time reviewing our instructional models, helping parents and students make some decisions there, review with you some of our operational planning that we're also doing, and then close by providing you with some additional information. I think it's really important for our community to know that as a school district, we are guided by a number of values, guiding principles, mission, and a vision. And at the forefront is our district direction, where we are preparing graduates who are inspired and empowered to strengthen the quality of life in our local and global communities. And as we go about making decisions with that vision, we do so with the assistance of two additional documents, the North Clackamas School District Equity Lens. These 7 questions help guide our decision-making, and they include questions such as what systems of oppression might exist within the situation. We ask ourselves, whom does the decision affect both positively and negatively? Does the decision being made, is it going to worsen existing disparities or produce other intended consequences? Are we including those that are going to be impacted by the decision in the decision-making process? Looking at a number of possibilities, and then ultimately the decision that we make, is it sustainable moving forward? We're also guided by our district strategic plan. And within that strategic plan, there are 5 values or guiding principles, and those include equity, engagement, care, integrity, and excellence. And really, as a superintendent of our district, I'm actually quite proud that those 5 values help guide our work as a school district. So as we are wrestling with really what are a plethora of decisions that need to be made and really open a school year in a manner that we've never done before, we are working under this current planning timeline. On July 21st, we completed some initial feedback through a thought exchange survey. Both our staff, students, and parents took part in that. And we use that feedback to help guide our decision making. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that in this presentation. In addition, last Thursday, we held a school board meeting in which we updated our school board on our planning process to date. And you can watch that school board meeting if you go to the district's YouTube website. This week, the week of August 3rd, we continue to share our revised proposals with our parents and our staff, knowing that next week we'll need to submit our plans to the Clackamas County Public Health. And then on August 13th, we'll have an additional school board meeting and share with our school board, again, where we are in our planning process. And that will be prior to submitting our re-entry blueprint to the Oregon Department of Education by August 17th. We're still on track to open school on September 8th and 9th. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that first week will look like. It will look a little bit different as we realize we're going to need to do some additional orientation activities that week, additional trainings for students, staff, and parents as we open up in an online model. So with that, I'm going to turn our presentation over to our Chief of Staff, Tiffany Shireman, who's going to take you through some of our guiding thoughts and health matrix.
Good afternoon, everyone. Central to North Clackamas School District's mission is providing a high-quality education and the academic progress of each child. As North Clackamas initiated its emergency planning in March, we focused strongly on the 3 guiding thoughts listed here in determining what actions we were going to take. The same guiding thoughts have been sitting at the center of our now more long-term planning for the 2020-2021 school year. First, we've been focused on low rates of COVID-19 virus transmission in the community. North Clackamas School District serves 17,000 students and their families. North Clackamas also employs over 2,000 employees. We are a large player in the county in terms of public health, and we recognize our strong responsibility to minimizing the virus transmission in the community. We also have been focused on coordinated actions that underscore the safety and care for people. In particular, we've been focused on folks' life safety. And third, we've stood ready to develop educational delivery models that are responsive to the current health and community needs. We recognize that for the educational models that have served us well for the last few years, certainly we're not going to meet our needs during this particular health crisis. So thank you for all of you for standing with us as we went through these guiding, as we went through the last few months of planning. We have a number of months ahead of us, and we continue to hold these guiding thoughts central to our planning. In those thoughts that I was just talking about, you should be able to see the kind of underscored focus on care, the underscored focus on our values that Matt had mentioned earlier. We also have paired that together with state documents that have been released over the past few months. They're frequently updated. Our partners in state government for this particular initiative are the Oregon Department of Education and the Oregon Health Authority. And you'll notice here the Ready Schools Safe Learners document. That's the first on the slide. It is what's guiding public and private school processes looking at the 2020-2021 school year throughout the state of Oregon. The most recent document to be added that I think is of focus here is the document on the far right. These are all available online at the Oregon Department of Education and the Oregon Health Authority. The one here on the far right looks at specific metrics, school-based public health metrics in order, school-related, that need to be in place in order for students to return to in-person learning in the state. Applies again to all public and private schools in the state. Well, we've had our state partners focused and giving us guidance for the last few months. We also have been monitoring emerging information, and our knowledge about COVID-19 as a disease, or as a public health piece in our public health, it's emerged and it's changed. What information we know. Most recently, we've been reviewing the information that's come forward that says that unless community spread is reduced reopening schools to in-person instruction, even with protective measures, will cause growth of the epidemic. We also have been looking at a study that found that people ages 10 to 19 can spread the virus at least as well as adults do. And while children younger than 10 transmit to others much less than adults do, the risk is not zero for children younger than 10. And finally, in the United States, there are over 3.3 million adults over age 65 who are living in multi-generational homes with at least one school-age child. We know that the same study indicates that families of color live in multi-generational homes with school-age children more frequently than families who are white. And we have an obligation as a school district in our public health responsibility to consider those who are most at risk during this public health crisis. We need to also consider the long-standing systemic and social inequities that have been in place that have put people of color at an increased risk for both getting COVID-19 and dying with COVID-19. The Oregon Health Authority released the metrics that were on that slide a couple of slides ago that speak directly to when can in-person instruction start again in the state. Prior to last week, we were operating more in a district by district decision fashion throughout the state, and at the governor's request, the Oregon Health Authority has released these metrics. So as you look at them, the metrics include both county-specific data and state-specific data. So in order to open to in-person instruction, a school district would have to see in their county that a case rate is less than or equal to 10 cases per 100,000 population in the prior week. For test positivity, we'd have to see less than 5% of cases of tests be positive in the preceding week. And the same metric would have to be met for the state, test positivity less than or equal to 5% in the preceding week. As a recent reference, Clackamas County has been at approximately 34 cases per 100,000 for the week ending July 25. Test positivity has hovered at about 3.7% for the week ending July 25, and just over 5% at the state level in the preceding week, in the week ending July 25. It is important to note that there is guidance that allows some groups of students to be considered for coming in for in-person instruction, and for a district to be able to consider bringing in some groups of students if the case rate, that first data piece, if that case rate is less than or equal to 30 cases per 100,000. So you'll be hearing about that both in the media and on social media frequently. At this time, North Clackamas's recommendation is that we would remain in comprehensive distance learning without students in school for in-person learning through to the beginning of November.
Thank you, Tiffany, for that information. I'm now going to turn our presentation over to Shay James, our Assistant Superintendent for Education.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start out by sharing a little bit about our educational instructional models that we're working on and designing this year for the upcoming school year. I want to start out by sharing, in order to inform our education and instructional models this year, we've worked hard to provide a variety of avenues for students, parents, and staff to give us information, priorities, and feedback to use in the design. Our directors continue to use this feedback provided from the multiple sources to inform and drive our work within our work groups on the delivery and instructional models designs. This feedback has come from a variety of sources, to include our Youth Truth Survey data, in which many of our students participated in and gave us very thoughtful feedback. Family empathy interviews, which also intentionally collected information from many of our historically underrepresented and underserved families, our bilingual families, in addition to others. Thought exchange, work sessions, which included employee association work groups, and work groups with representatives from a variety of stakeholders. We continuously place these data points at the center of our work alongside of the equity lens in our planning process. Here you see our educational delivery model depicted visually, and this was created to help our staff, students, and our families better understand some of the nuances between the models that we're currently planning for. So I'll draw your attention to the top left-hand corner of this visual depiction, and this starts with our comprehensive distance learning. And I'm going to share details around that here shortly. So that you kind of know some of those bullets that are under there. But from the comprehensive distance learning, we would move into a hybrid model, which you see below. I want to point out that we'll stay in the comprehensive distance learning model through the end of the quarter. But prior to the end of the first quarter, we will utilize all tools, safety metrics, and multiple measures, some of which you just heard our Chief of Staff talk about, to determine if it is safe to move to hybrid. And I just want to let families know that we will not be moving into the hybrid model until it is determined safe to do so, using all the metrics available for us that need to be met. On the right-hand side of this visual depiction, you'll see the third model that we're planning for, which is the North Clackamas School District online virtual program. And again, I will go into details of that so that you can understand the difference between comprehensive distance learning, which you will often hear called CDL, and the virtual online program. And we do continue to work through many of the details of these three models, and I will share the information that we do have at this time, but there will also be forthcoming information over the next week as well. So in planning for the education and instructional models, we formed 4 large work groups. These work groups were often divided into smaller work groups, or sometimes by level, so elementary, middle, and high school, to inform the work that we were doing. And these work group teams are comprised of colleagues from our Teachers Association group, NCEA, and our Classified Support Staff Association, OSEA. It also had members from our administrators, administration, district office, social worker representation, counselors, instructional coaches, IAs, instructional assistants is what that stands for, engagement specialists, etc. And we had many more folks that were also involved, but just to give you some idea that we had multiple perspectives at the table and looking from all different angles. These teams were attending to the essential questions, requirements, and recommendations out of the Oregon Department of Education guidance document, in addition to best practices that we used. What you see here is a small example of each of the topics that different groups were looking at. We did address many topics that are not on here, but just wanted to give you kind of a sampling of what they were looking at. Each group was led by trained facilitators who used essential questions, group norms, best practice and research, the feedback from parents, students, and staff, and our equity lens. And these groups are working to address, as I stated, the instructional and delivery model designs from many different components, perspectives, and layers. So some additional examples of work that they tackled, but it's more than this, not limited to. We're planning for the continuation and providing services and language acquisition needs to our English language learners. Also planning for accommodations and supports for our students with disabilities. However, I know parents are waiting on more information around what it will look like for our ELL students and our students with disabilities. And I want to let you know that the guidance from Oregon Department of Education will not be coming out until August 11th regarding the service delivery models for those two departments specifically. So we're doing our best that we can to give the information that we have at this time. But once that comes out, we'll be able to give more detailed nuances for you to look at. In addition to supporting our English language learners and our students with disabilities, we've been looking at strategies such as how to support our teen parents in the PACE program. What does it look like for grading and assessment that's aligned to our priority standards? And then how do our families access our partner supports, such as our school-based health centers, our mental health providers? Can our families go there to get COVID testing? Those are the things that we're looking at so that we can put information out to you so that you can access what's helpful for you as a family. But what I will share is all of these work group components are being worked on for all educational models for families, regardless of which choice you make. From here, I'll go into some of the nuances, the differences between the comprehensive distance learning and the North Clackamas virtual online learning. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the foundational information and then key features within both options that you might be wondering about. So with our comprehensive distance learning model, it allows all students to access instruction and learn remotely. And again, this will be done until the end of the first quarter, at which time we will assess for the continuation based on multiple safety metrics and multiple components that we will be looking at. Within the comprehensive distance learning model, all students will be given a laptop if needed. And I just want to assure families and parents that this learning model will be more robust and more interactive than the distance learning for all model that we had this spring. So some of the key features to understand about comprehensive distance learning is that we will have interactive daily teacher-student check-in. So there will be some kind of video in terms of where we're just making sure that students are feeling safe, they're feeling connected, and that we're checking in with adults and our students, you know, from wherever it is that they are. It will have video instruction and interaction with teachers and peers. And to some degree, this will be done synchronous and asynchronous. So at time, there will be a school schedule that folks will be able to follow. However, if your child is not able to make that session for whatever reason that day, it will be recorded and they will be able to access it later. We also will have asynchronous learning within that time where they will be doing applied learning on their own at times within there. So a combination of both. Within the comprehensive distance learning, it's important to know that students will maintain their connection with community schools, teachers, and peers from their home schools. So it'll be this much of the same staff that you're used to seeing, and your neighbors that you see at that school often will be there with your student. We will utilize our North Clackamas curriculum, which will be aligned to our priority standards as the guide. And students in high school will maintain access to CTE courses at Sabin-Schellenberg through online measures that we're currently putting into place. So we will have a hands-on component for this where applicable within our career and technical education courses. And so that might look like in some places where kids come home with our students in order to be able to follow instructions and do some of the project-based hands-on learning while they're there. And other times it might include having something like a GoPro camera on a teacher's head while they're looking to demonstrate what it is that they're doing within the class. Students will have access to AP and IB depending on what's offered at their home high school within the comprehensive distance learning. And we're just working very hard to make sure that we're able to meet the needs of all of the learners within the classroom. And so differentiation, what does it look like to address all of the students' learning modalities and all of their needs? In addition, if Families who are in magnet programs within our district will continue to learn whatever that key feature of that program is at their home high school. So for example, if you are in a dual language immersion program, you will continue to access learning through the language at the home high school, at the home school, excuse me, through comprehensive distance learning. If you're looking for more answers to questions that perhaps I didn't answer or something specific, I'm going to encourage you to go to our website and check out the frequently asked questions that are on there and updated on a regular basis. So here I'm going to move into some of the foundational components of our North Clackamas School District virtual online program. And what I want to make sure that folks understand is that this is a temporary 1-year online program. And it does require that a family commit to this program for the entire year. Students will be given a laptop if needed. And like our comprehensive distance learning program, this option will be more robust and more interactive than the distance learning model that we had for all in the spring. This model is limited to 550 students district-wide. And if we have more than 550 students, we will be looking at lottery enrollment option in order to register students into this program. Going into some key features of the virtual online program, much like comprehensive distance learning, we will have interactive video with teachers and peers, but I just want to point out that it will require students to be more independent in their learning in this model. So if you have a student that struggles with a little bit of additional independent learning or more focus there, then you would want to look at the comprehensive distance learning model. This program will also be made up of teachers and students from a variety of schools across our community. So it will not necessarily be the same teachers that you're used to seeing in the building when you go in, or your students or neighboring students that are in your classrooms. This is again from across our district and for both staff and for peers. The curriculum is a web-based curriculum and will be provided through Edgenuity and Odysseyware. I will say that Edgenuity will be the main place that we'll be looking at for the curriculum in terms of offering what they have. And we do have a link to Edgenuity and Odysseyware on the FAQ that's on the website for the virtual online program if you're interested in digging a little bit deeper. We will offer career and technical education courses online through Edgenuity. However, at this time, we're not able to confirm which courses will be offered to students and if they align to the courses and the offerings at Saban-Schellenberg. So that's an important piece to note. We are currently working with Edgenuity to see which courses students will have access to, and we'll be able to share that information soon. Students will have access to some AP and elective courses, but not all, and they will not have access to IB if you're in the Putnam Feeder program, if you choose to go into the virtual online program. And in addition, it's important to note that again, if you are in a magnet program within our system, that we will absolutely hold your spot for you for the following year if you choose the virtual online program. However, the feature that's offered in whatever magnet program that you are in will not necessarily be offered at the virtual online in the virtual online model. We are working hard to see where we can supplement to the degree possible and what we could offer as an optional base for after school. But at this time, the feature would not be put into the curriculum that is taught. So an example is going back to the dual language immersion. If you have a child that's in the dual language immersion and you opted to go into the virtual online program, it would not be done through the language in accessing learning, but we would try to offers many optional opportunities that we could afterwards. And so if your child returned to that program the following year, they may not be at the same level as the students who remained in comprehensive distance learning. So here you see an additional visual that we have that's two models, the comprehensive distance learning and the North Clackamas virtual online model side by side. And this was created to help families with basic information around these two in terms of making a decision of what option that you would be interested in looking at. This came home hopefully or was sent to you by your principals either late last week or sometime today. And so if you didn't receive it late last week, be looking for that from your principal this week. And this information is also on our district website. It does go over most of the information that I went through in the key features between comprehensive and distant and virtual online learning. One thing I do want to point out is that in all of our models, middle school and high school students will have access to electives. Elementary students will continue to engage in their specials as well, which is equivalent to electives at middle and high school at the elementary level. All models will have grades with them, and all models will allow high school students to earn 7 or 8 credits for the year, which is the same as a typical school year. And all options lead to credit and completion towards a North Clackamas School District diploma. So here I'm going to shift attention a little bit into what instruction would look like. I know that's a question that folks are wondering. And here I'm going to have you zero in and pay attention to the greater than and the less than symbols. So in terms of instruction from the ODE guidance, from Oregon Department of Education guidance that has come out, teacher facilitated time must be greater than or equal 50% of instruction time. This includes synchronous and asynchronous learning. So at times there will be teacher-led and sometimes will be the applied learning and independent learning within that, but teacher-facilitated instruction is greater than or equal to 50%. When we look at applied learning, so now we're applying the skill sets that, that our instructors have been working with us in instruction, it is less than or equal to 50% of the time. So this could be applied at 51 to 49%. It could be applied at a 60 to 40%, but must follow the greater than or equal than time. And our applied learning time also includes support staff and related services. So right now we're looking at a 4-day-a-week model with instruction, with 5 days a week of interactive video check-in. And on the flex day that we're not having instruction, there would be time for office hours to reach out to your teacher. And, if you have questions or you need support, planning time for our staff, professional development, student supports, parent connections, times for individual education plans if needed. And so there's built-in time in order to support our students and families as needed, and also our staff within the building. And on this slide, again, out of the guidance of Oregon Department of Education, it breaks down into more details, the minutes of the teacher facilitation time, that's the minimum requirement, and applied learning. So this is the premise that is the guide for our school schedules that will be coming out fairly soon. So again, the minutes that you see on this page are the minimum requirements for the daily or the weekly schedules that give you more context.
Thank you, Shay. I appreciate the detailed information. Next, I'd like to turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent for Operations, Cindy Detchen, to talk about some of the operational planning that's also going on.
Great, thank you very much. I just wanted to give you a couple slides to make sure that you are aware of all of the things that are happening behind the scenes. Our custodians have been back since June. Our maintenance staff, our groundskeepers, our technology staff, making sure that they have protocols in place for their own safety and wellness as well to get some very important jobs done. While we are not going to be coming back to in-person learning in the immediate fall, there are still things that we need to have in place and included in our plan that goes to Oregon Department of Education. And I'm not going to go into all of these, but I want to make sure that all of our families are aware that these will be written protocols, will be available for public viewing on our website, but they include things like a communicable disease management plan. What happens if someone is tested positive for this particular virus or other things? We've had measles in the past, and there are protocols in place for notifying people and how we self-quarantine, et cetera, that we're learning through this particular virus. Once we do have folks back on site, there will be protocols for cohort tracking. That's why we cannot have everybody back in the building at the same time, because we're trying to limit the number of people that each group comes in contact with on any given day. There will be significant hygiene protocols, cleaning and disinfecting. We are reviewing all of our heating and ventilation units to make sure that we are maximizing the air quality in all of our buildings to the degree physically possible with those units. So all of those things are being done at a district level, but for each school building and work site as well. The other planning that is happening, you can see we actually have to measure every single classroom. We have over 1,400 classrooms in our district to measure to see what the square footage would be if we were to have our staff and our students back, and at the same time, what is a reasonable amount of people that we should be putting in each of those spaces. And so while those pieces are being done, we've also had a lot of our technology and some of our support staff reading the regulations and understanding how we take attendance in a virtual setting. It's different than when they walk through the door and we can actually do a head count. It's a different model. And we want to make sure that we are tracking all of our students appropriately and making sure we're checking in with them when they don't check in with us. How do we know who to reach out to? We will be providing technology, as Dr. James mentioned, in all of our models for those students who need it, but we have to figure out how to deploy the rest of those and deliver each one of those Chromebooks. A lot of our families accessed Chromebooks and hotspots in the spring, but not all. And we have a significant number of families, including new families to us, that we want to make sure that they have the tools necessary to have this learning happen in the home or other places outside of our schools. And so we're working on making sure that everybody has what they need. Transportation, while we may not be transporting students as we get back to learning here in September, we will be looking at how do we transport those Chromebooks out to our families. And so our bus drivers, in some cases, may be helping support that effort, as well as nutrition services. We know a great number of our families and students accessed the different food service models that we had around our district in the spring and throughout this summer. And now we're figuring out how we can improve upon that model and possibly push some food out into our communities and not rely on families with cars or within walking distance to pick up food. So more on that as soon as we can narrow down some of those regulations that right now have eliminated us from doing that, but we hope to get over that hurdle very soon. Facility use, right now we are not opening any of our sites to rentals as we typically do with youth sports or adult sports or church groups or other folks who have typically rented some of our our common spaces in larger areas. It's just not safe to do so at this point. So, but we are monitoring as the county opens up it to different phases, what we need to do in response to those phase changes as well. We know that care, which was what we call our before and after school care program, our daycare program, is not going to look the same, and we may not be able to offer what we've been able to offer in the past. Right now, the state only has open emergency care centers for first responders and healthcare workers, and we're waiting for further guidance from the state, which should come out about the middle of August. And then we will provide as much information as we possibly can at that point. Extracurricular and athletics are on hold as well at this time. As long as we remain in phase one, we will be in that stage of being on pause and continue to wait for further guidance from the OSAA for at least our high school sports activities. Communications, if you are on watching YouTube right now, watching us live or find this later, I hope that means that you are paying attention to email, and that's how you got this information, or our district website, our email communications, our social media. But if you're not receiving information from us and you know that you should be, you have children in our schools, please let us know. Contact your school's office, email your school's principal. You can call our front desk and we will try to get somebody to make sure that you have an updated email address so that you continue to get all of that information. If you are a family at one of our charter schools, you are receiving information directly from them, with the exception of Milwaukee Academy of the Arts, as it is commingled with a lot of the Milwaukee High School information. You are getting your information directly from Milwaukee High School. Each of our charter schools also has to follow all of these same guidelines and will be submitting their blueprint plans to ODE as well. We do have leadership and associations in each of our employee groups, and we want to make sure that we are meeting with them on a weekly basis or an as-need basis to make sure that we are listening to all of our staff, as they are a very integral part of making all of this happen. And they've been, as Dr. James mentioned, a huge part of our work groups and helping these distance for learning and our comprehensive distance learning and each of these models come forth. We have purchased all of the disinfecting supplies and the protective equipment that our staff will need once they come back into our schools to keep both our staff and our students safe. You will see some plastic barriers installed at front desks in the offices. You will see hand washing stations, hand sanitizer stations. We will be requiring masks per the governor's orders. And if students don't have a mask, we will be able to provide that for them. But all employees will have what they need to make sure that we have a safe environment for our learning spaces. And finally, staff training and professional development. As you can imagine, taking a system that has worked one way for a great many number of years and turning it to look a very different way is going to involve a lot of training and professional development. And we want to make sure that our staff has what they need to deliver these models in the most effective way possible. In addition, we know that parents are going to need some support, particularly with some of the technology, and we are going to make sure that we have some help desk information, a way for you to get some personalized instruction if you or a caregiver for your student at home needs some assistance with technology. So that's what I believe I have to share.
Great, thank you, Cindy. I appreciate the information. So as we wrap up, a couple closing slides that I'll walk you through. We've received some questions regarding school calendars, and I want to share with you where we believe we are today with our school calendars. We do believe that the beginning and end dates of our school calendars will remain consistent with what we originally published in the spring. And so that makes the first days of school September 8th and 9th. And as I referenced in my opening comments, that first week will include some interactions with families and students, some orientation, get to know you sessions, technology problem solving, some technology training in there as well. And that we currently believe that we will start academic instruction during the first week of September, or sorry, excuse me, during the second week of September, that September 14th. Obviously, we have many staff trainings to do between now and starting that academic instruction on September 14th. It's really important to point out that how one teaches in an online format is dramatically different than in-person instruction. And we realize the critical need to assist our staff in making sure that this will be a smooth transition for students. Should any calendar changes become necessary, we will provide those updates for you well in advance so families can make plans. So next steps, we realize that we're really in an unprecedented period here with a lot of unknowns. And we know today that we are able to answer a lot of your questions, but we know that there are still many questions that remain unanswered. And we will continue to provide updates, probably fairly close to weekly between now and the start of the school year. So we'll have another information session tomorrow. We'd like to remind parents that the educational option selection form is due on Wednesday by midnight. And again, communications will continue throughout August. You are welcome to attend our school board meeting on August 13th. It will be done via YouTube. We will provide additional information at that time for the community. And then again, our blueprint for re-entry is due to the Oregon Department of Education on the 17th. So it's really important that I draw your attention to our district website. And when you go to our district website, the main lead story is around reopening, and there is also a button right below that main lead story that is entitled NCSD Reopening Plans. When you click on that link, it will take you to all the various buttons that you see displayed on your screen now. So there's links to those state documents that were referenced earlier. The FAQs in multiple languages are listed there, and we continue to update those. We know that we did not answer all of your questions today, and as folks continue to email us, or we look on social media, what is trending out there, we'll write a question and an answer to help provide additional information to our students in our community. So I really would encourage you to create a tab there on your browser and continue to check this website on a fairly consistent basis for the most up-to-date information. And finally, we'd just like to remind our community that we continue to provide summer food to our students and families through August 28th. And you can, again, a link on our website as well. And you can also, if this is, I clicked too fast through this slide, you can go back and watch the video of this presentation, scroll to the end until you find this slide. But we have daily pickup sites for food, we have weekly pickup sites for food, and then we've got some additional other sites that are not at our school buildings. You can see these are grab and go breakfast and lunches, and would encourage direct your family to these, other families to these as needed. I also want to draw your attention to our care program, and as Cindy referenced, one of the things that our care program offers in a normal school year is before and after school care. And while we're not providing that this summer, our care program is providing a virtual summer camp. And so again, if you go to the district's website and just do a search for Care Virtual Summer Camp, it'll find a link to opportunities for your children to engage in some summer activities, and that goes through August 14th. So with that, I want to thank you for attending this informational session today. Please keep those questions coming. You can email North Clackamas Stories, the email that we push out information to you. If you respond to that with a question, we do read those, and you can continue to do that. And then we will continue to email you. We'll continue to do push information out both through email and virtually as we have it to share. Again, thank you for attending, and I hope you're having a good summer. Take care.